Hello Longhorn.
Hello Longhorn.
Hello Longhorn.
Hello, Longhorn. This is the Texas Exes podcast introducing you to Longhorn entrepreneurs and business leaders. And today we are going to learn about civil engineering with Civilitude. So the CEO is Fayez Kazi. He has a BS Architectural Engineering from UT from 1998 and then came back for his MS. And Nhat Ho, who's the president, who has a BS in Architectural Engineering in 2010. I learned a lot because I really was starting at level 0 when it came to civil engineering. So here is the leaders of Civilitude. I'm excited. I know nothing about civil engineering.
Okay.
Okay.
That
So
makes two of us.
we're gonna today. This is gonna be like, what is it? What do you do? Like as a person, just who was an advertising major. I never even went into that side of campus. Like honestly, I think the engineering buildings. Where are they? Somewhere.
San
over-
Jacinto and 26th. Yeah.
Okay. And also like y'all's story of how you came to UT, wildly different than mine. I just drove down I-35, grew up in Dallas. My dad went here. So I wanted to start there, and I'll start with you, Fayez. You grew up in Kuwait.
Yeah.
So a little bit about that is you graduated as a valedictorian,
Yeah.
but how did you end up at UT? Because this was, again, like mid-90s. It's not like you were getting TikToks
Right.
about the university on your phone. So how did you even know UT existed?
Yeah. So not as exciting of a story as you would think. I went to an American high school.
Okay.
So I was in Kuwait during the Gulf War. I left for a year while Kuwait was being liberated and came back and finished my high school in Kuwait at an
So
American
there was
school.
kids from all over at your school.
There are kids from all over, Americans included. All of our teachers were American. And, both sides of my brain were firing at the time, the creative and the math science. And so architectural engineering was a happy medium. And UT was number one at the time. And
Oh,
so
they were?
Yeah. And so I just kind of, yeah.
Then, I'm
Depends
close
on
to
who
your
ranks it.
age, but like, what did you do? Like, I guess at the time, were we getting rankings through magazines or was it just going on AOL.com? And like
I think it was still like U.S. News.
U.S. News, yeah.
Yeah, and we had counselors, high school counselors, and so I was picking between Stanford, UT, and Virginia Tech, and I didn't want to go up north where it was cold. I was used to warm weather, and so
Yeah.
Austin, I got here as fast as I could.
And you flew into the old Mueller controversy. Is it Mueller Airport?
yeah.
And then you stayed at like a random motel.
I stood at Roadway and down the street here, and then my dad came with me, and the next morning we walked down 26th Street, and I was expecting UT to just be like one building. I thought it would be, and I didn't know 40 acres at the time, and that was this huge campus, and I made my way to the international office, which was at the time, it may still be in that area, 26th and Speedway-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where'd you live freshman year?
Freshman year, I lived on North Campus, where all the engineering nerds live.
Not in a dorm?
Not in a dorm. So 31st and Speedway.
Okay. All right. So Nat, where did you grow up?
I was not valedictorian. So
Okay.
I did not graduate high school at all. So
You didn't, but you came here as an exchange student, right? From
Yeah.
Vietnam?
so I finished 11th grade. I was 17, and then I got bit by the bug, and I'm like, it's time to go.
Okay.
I've always grew up because my mom was in Iraq right before the Gulf War broke out. So that's our connection. And yeah, 17, I got bit by the bug, and I gave my mom 3 months notice, and I was gone. And so I had to went to a high school first in order to like come of age, right?
Leander,
I went to
right?
Leander High.
Yeah.
And
Exciting.
yeah, and then
Exciting.
they wouldn't let me graduate because I didn't have enough credit in
Okay.
high school that's certified. And so I took the bus and get my GED and then apply to college. And so
UT was what? Why'd you pick UT?
So I did 2 years of community college
Okay.
in Houston. So I'm a product of public schools and community college. And from there, I was like, well, I need the challenge because similar to Fayez, not as smart, but similar to Fayez, I was looking for sort of like challenge. And then, U of H, I wanted to do architecture at the time. I applied to architecture school at UT, and this is a secret that not everybody know. They accepted me to the architecture engineering program. That was a very nice way to say, yeah, you're not going to make it in architecture.
Oh, you wanted to be over at the architecture
That's right.
school, and there's
Yeah.
but that's crazy because I think architecture, like architectural engineering, is also probably pretty hard to get into and selective.
Yeah, and
yeah.
you know that made me felt good, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. But yeah, because U of H would have been a great school for architecture, and I was already in Houston. But I have a lot of friends here in Austin, and so it just felt like it's the right time to come back. And there's nothing like the challenge of moving to like transfer to UT at the upper division because it was very competitive. Yeah.
And then so you probably also didn't live in a dorm.
I did not live in a dorm. I visit a lot of dorm based on who I was dating at the time. So I know where all the good dorm good foods are.
Oh, who's the best food?
I think Kensington, I think it's at the best food.
Okay.
But I was in North Campus.
Okay.
Like in one of these apartments that I don't think they have got to be 20 years worth of student who live in that apartment that never moved out. We just kind of sublease to each other. So yeah, it's terrible.
And then what did you guys do while y'all are on campus? Just to be clear, y'all were not here at the same time.
Yeah,
but
we need to clarify that.
Yeah, not here at the same time.
So for the record, we were off by 10 years or 11 years.
You actually were his teacher.
I was his teacher.
We're going to get to that,
Yeah.
Okay, so you graduated in 2010, and Fayez, you graduated in 98, and then also got your master's here and graduated in 2001.
Right.
And both of you guys wanted to go into civil engineering. Was that the plan? So so what did you think you were going to do? I'll start with you, Fayez. What did you think you were going to do when you graduated?
I thought I was going to do structural engineering. So I graduated in 98 with my bachelor's. And, we're both international students, so it's not as easy to just, get a job. Mm-hmm. Your employers have to sponsor your visas and so on. And so, I wasn't able to secure a job after my bachelor's. And after my master's, the only job I got that I was interested in was with the civil engineering firm.
Okay.
And so that wrong turn over there just kind of, and the rest is history, really.
You liked it, I guess?
Yeah.
So let me kind of back it up a little bit because I think this part of the convo is really relevant to our industry because we say that we do civil engineering, but it's really land development is a very specialized subset in civil. And honestly, nobody ends up there is actually meant to be there because UT, A&M, Texas Tech, none of these schools have any land development track. So shout out. One day I'd love to do that with UT is to do an actual land development track, civil engineering or archi, properly education, with that.
Okay, so tell me about that.
I think it's worth expanding on how land development sort of impacts just the everyday Austinite, right? And so Nhat talked about and none of it is glamorous. It's all that happens. Most of that happens at the ground level or below the ground.
Stuff that we don't really see.
That's
what I was going to ask. Stuff that y'all are doing. It's not typically like the architect. I might be able to be like, look at that building that they built.
That's right.
Look at the door and how it looks, or the Tetris building, right?
Yeah.
But you're doing this stuff. It's harder for you to point out necessarily. You can be like, I worked on that project.
Yeah.
But it's the stuff we don't really see that you're doing.
But it has really it has many layers. So at the very highest level, I would say, take City Hall, for example, has kind of this outdoor space, has those steps that allow, news, what's the word I'm looking for?
When they have all the press conferences?
Press conferences.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So press conferences or, kind of a music event, outdoor music event. And they have parking garage underneath. They have drainage around that. They have this interaction at each of those street intersections and how those crosswalks work. And so there's a planning aspect to our work as well that allows for these public spaces to happen and for community to happen in those public spaces. While we're also addressing, well, how does drainage work on the garage level? You know, how do the fire trucks maybe protect the city hall, or how do cars circulate, and where do they enter the garage, and how does water quality happen? How does stormwater quality happen? How do they get the utilities? How do they get chilled water? And so most of downtown has a chilled water plant that Austin Energy has, and they freeze the water during off-peak times when the city sleeps, right? That's when they're freezing the water, and then that energy transfer is used to cool or heat all of the buildings downtown.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so UT has a chilling plant, and you can see that on
So they're freezing the water so that when we need it,
when you need the energy transfer,
actually melting and then getting to us as cold.
Yeah.
Versus raising the temperature the minute we need it. They're actually decreasing the
Right.
temperature.
Yeah. And so it's just sort of balancing the energy needs. So there's just so many layers. We could go on forever, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of things, like you said, that are sort of invisible to the average person and about the work that we do.
So in civil, we don't get to innovate very often, but when we do, it's things that are like pervious pavers. So like, if you're going to build parking lot anyway, does it have to be asphalt? Does it have to be concrete? So we've done some interesting work with the city and other folks to try to innovate in our own way with like pervious paver system, infiltration rain gardens, things that are like the nerdy stuff that you don't
what
always
is that?
get
What
to
kind
do.
of paving is that what is it?
So for example, right, if you're parking on a surface and you just put asphalt or concrete, it's considered impervious cover. It means that it stopped the water from infiltrating into the ground.
Okay.
And that means it create runoff. So the water run off and create erosion.
Yeah.
And it's also carry the pollutant, which is the rubber fragments on the tires and all of these things to the creek. Not good, right? So then you have to design pond in order to treat those pollutant, and that take up space from putting student housing or office space or parking, things that you actually need. Or in our cases, we design parks, public parks. We design public school. So the space that you put ponds are the space that you don't put classroom. Or we're working on a park right now in Buda that are in the floodplain. Like most of the parks in the floodplain, how do you design parking in the floodplain that is not dirty, right? And so pervious paver is basically interlocking paver that doesn't have joints. So it have gravels, it's allow water to be infiltrated through, it cleans. So hopefully by the time it get to the creeks, it's not so dirty anymore.
It's crazy that there's that much thought, right? Like for me, I'm thinking you just pour the concrete, the water goes. You don't think about like all the water being dirty with all of the stuff from the tires and that you have to deal with that issue. So that's a really good example, a little bit that's I can understand.
And that's a kind of a unique Austin thing. I would say some community is not too concerned about that, which I think there's a conversation in policy that we can have. But Fayez's work on planning commission is balancing that exact diametric things, right? It's like, okay, we know we need housing. We know we need other needs in development. But do you build that at all costs, at the environmental cost, right? Austin is famous for like Circle C area. That was a big fight between development and the environmental protection community kind of at odd. It's like, it's one or the other. But I would argue that the work that we do right now, either on policy or some of the voluntary work, I serve on the RICA board and Long Center board and Umlauf board. These are things that we could use to like reconcile the need of human being to the desire to protect the environment. And it's not a simple black and white, one or the other. Colony Park is a project that both he and I have worked on for like over a decade. This is a community on east of Austin. It's basically similar to Mueller, which is the land that the city owned. Colony Park is 200 acres on the east side community that the city owned. And what we joke is 13 years ago or 15 years ago, when we first started Civilitude, we were building sidewalk in like broken pieces along those streets. Now we get to build new street that connect community. That development didn't happen for over a decade because the plan was good, but it didn't take into account the economics and how to balance some of these needs. And so we get to do that. We get to broke that loose. That was not the lawyers. Sorry. That was not the business major. That was not the architect, but it was us with the planner and the master developer who were thinking more long term.
So I want to go back to how y'all met. you're teaching him, you decide that you're going to start your own company, and it's Civilitude. And then was Nhat part of it, like as
Nhat
an
was one of
intern,
them.
or were you
Yeah,
one
Nhat
of,
was an intern.
You were an intern.
He started as an
Yep.
intern, yeah.
Okay. And what was y'all's first of all, why did you want to start your own company, Fayez? And what was the first project that you did?
Why did I start my own firm? So it's there's lots of layers to that question. But the three main things, one of them was that the market was slow, and so I wasn't getting as much progress in my career at the firm that I was at. And I wasn't necessarily included in large conversations with like business leaders and elected officials. And so there was some hierarchy there that wasn't great for me.
Yeah.
And finally I was like, I had one daughter and another on the way. And I thought maybe I should slow down a bit and start my own firm. That's an oxymoron.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Let's
Yeah.
start our own
Let's
thing.
start our
That'll
own
slow
firm
down.
and
Yeah.
slow down.
Yeah.
So that didn't work. My wife and kids were visiting my in-laws in London. This is spring break of 2010. And I called my wife and said, I quit my job. So when you get back, I'm going to need you to apply for a job.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But I can put food on the table because I still have this teaching gig. So don't freak out.
Rich, right? From
yeah.
teaching.
Yeah, from teaching. So I could put food on the table. She still reminds me to this day about that wasn't a very, very smart move. Maybe more communication, I think, is what she said.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it sounds like you just wanted to do your own thing.
Yeah, want to do my own thing,
Yeah.
chart my own path, and had enough from the two jobs that I had. One, which was, like I said before, public and private, some affordable housing, kind of very community-minded, local firm. The other was very corporate and, very structured and, performance metrics and measurables and so on. And so soon after I got my license, I switched firms to the very corporate firm. So I learned a few things there. But the one principle I was wanting to, be a big part of the new firm, Civilitude, was that I would leave those doors open that I was left out of, right? So the access to business leader and elected official, it really makes a difference in how you grow and how you network, how you're connected, and how you understand kind of all of the pieces fitting together. Because it's not just engineering. Like I said, there's business involved, there's public interaction, there's advocacy, there's lots of relationships. And Austin is, even to this day, is an, old boys club.
Sure.
And so we had to break into that.
Yeah.
Right? We're not the old boys of Texas. Right?
Right.
I mean, he has boots on, but so maybe he's closer now.
Okay, so what was y'all's first project? And
Oh,
and
this
you did a
ought to be
lot
good. Go ahead.
of affordable housing in schools. Were kind of but what was your first?
So I don't know which one came first, but it was one affordable housing project and one school project. And the affordable housing project was literally across from where I lived, which is our office, because it was in our dining room, in my dining room. And it was fixing some sidewalks in this apartment complex. So very, not glamorous, very small project. And while we were working on that sidewalks and all of the slopes and making sure they were ADA accessible, a kid stumbled upon like this huge cavity in the ground that went down like 30 feet. And so we were assigned and engaged to fill that cavity, figure out what that is. So
Okay.
had to work with the Barton Springs Conservation something or another, or a couple organizations.
Okay.
So we, very typical engineering. What's the volume of a cylinder? Here's the area of the opening, and here's how deep it is. We think, because we just like used a tape measure or I don't know exactly what we used, something very rigged up. And so we figured out the volume, and we said, okay, we're gonna need this much amount of dirt. We dump it in there, and it's sealed. Well, we had dumped that dirt, and it just disappeared.
Okay.
And so we dumped another load of just the same amount, and it disappeared. And so it turns out there's this huge cavity or caverns underneath this apartment
Whoa.
complex. Yeah. And so then we had divers come in and they dove down and to figure out this.
Had you ever solved a problem like this before?
No. This is
your first time. So
this
you're
was
like
the first time.
calling people like,
Yeah.
what is this?
What is this thing?
Yeah.
Like that nobody knows, that this kid just stumbled upon and could have fallen into this thing.
Whoa.
Right? So then they agreed to put in large pieces of concrete and things so that we can just cover it up. So I was on a skid steer, a Bobcat, like on the heavy equipment, and I didn't know how to use it very well, but enough to lift up some heavy things and throw them in there.
That's wild.
None of that was in the scope of work.
Yeah,
No.
like I don't know if you ever
We did not
like,
get
thought
trained
you
for
were going to
that.
learn how to
No.
be on a Bobcat.
Uh,
Were you there at that time?
I was there.
Nat, oh, okay.
I
You're
was
like,
there.
I remember.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned that it was hard for you guys, or you felt like you wanted the doors open, and you guys have been around since now 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And I might not be able to see, like we've talked about, all the different projects that you guys have done because some of them are invisible, kind of like you said. But the scope of work that y'all are now doing in this city is huge, right? And you're two guys that grew up elsewhere, and now you're building the city of Austin in a lot of ways, right? Like the project amount y'all have done is like over 700
Yeah, I think
something,
we're close to 900 now.
900 projects,
Yeah.
right? 2010. So what?
Do you count the
pow-
hold as one of
The
them?
coal is definitely one
The
of
hole
them.
is 2 because the sidewalks and the hole, so that's 2 projects.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I guess looking back, like, was there a project that was pivotal into where it was like, we've arrived, like here in Austin, and that you look back to as like, that was a really important project for us? And maybe it was the whole, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I want to hear Nat's answer to this as well, but I'll say, what really stuck to me and really means a lot is, I don't know if UT is still using this, but what starts here changes the world.
Yeah.
Right? So our world is the city and the community here. And so we're really trying very hard to make an impact and address the challenges that are in the community. My work, work on the Planning Commission, Nat's work to this day on a lot of policies and so on. And you'll see a pattern within our umbrella of companies that is all about helping the community address some of the challenges around housing and mobility and equity and affordability. There was an early pattern of smaller projects, meaning sidewalks or a running track at a school, or a small drainage issue or a small library addition. Or I would say those were still small until they stopped being small. I would say the first kind of full-blown project would be Jenkins. It's an office building for a custom home builder.
Okay.
And I wouldn't on record say how much we charged for it because it was pennies. But it was, our first kind of full project from scratch, like land development. It wasn't, there's already an apartment there and we're fixing the sidewalks. It was from scratch. So that's a pivotal. There were other milestones that were, that transformed our trajectory, but that was one of the first ones.
Okay, what are you going to say,
no,
Nat?
I'll add, a lot of the context along the way. So as I mentioned, like land development is just very different.
Yeah.
You kind of make it what it is. If you stick to the traditional path, there's always a need for an engineer to design the parking lot and design the utility. There's a very noble practice of just doing the work. And I think where we, and I'll say that our 1.0 version, right, is like you do what you assign to do. And in small business, that's rule number 1, right? You find no matter how good you are, you do the work that you are hired to do.
If they need a sidewalk, you do a sidewalk.
That's right.
That's right.
And a lot of our school projects are really just fixing ADA compliance.
Okay.
Noble work, nothing wrong with that, and that's the work. And, I just want to echo and kind of edify Fayez on this. He's really brought, in my mind, the sort of the intuitive business side that I look back would say, man, I wish I was that wise. Not having his name as a firm, but rather an idea. I saw him design logo in class. I'm like, what are you doing? Can I help you with that? And then not like imposing the idea of like, I know how to do this and that's all you're going to learn how to do, but rather say, hey, I'm a professor. You don't go to classroom and said, all the student got to be like me. You go to the classroom and said, whatever you want to do, I'm here to help you. And I think in business is exactly like that. I bring some really crazy idea. In fact, it's like, yeah, sure. How are you going to do that exactly? And I think that is probably the biggest stepping that I think Fayez have done with the company is at the beginning, you kind of do odd pieces here and there. Yes, the idea of serving the affordable housing and public school was noble. And I think I would even say competitive from a market standpoint, because we were at one point tiny little startup competing with URS, which is the biggest corporation at the time at AISD, like fixing jobs. So they're a project that URS is like, I'm not fixing that parking lot. Go hire somebody else. And I think that was us. And then, be opportunistic in some of those things. That was our 1.0. So I would say our biggest success in 1.0 version, which is the first 6 years, first 3 years a nonprofit, right? And then the first 6 years, we got some projects. Was that part of the apartment with that hole in?
Yeah.
We did a learning center that have daycare, all of the things that make that homes for these folks. Is you don't just go home and shove your kids in your apartment. You go home, put your kids in the learning center. They doing homework while you're learning how to file taxes. I used to volunteer for tax filing for Foundation Communities. They do a fantastic job helping people with the surrounding services, which is what make you successful, right? So we did that building, and most people are not going to appreciate it except for the engineer. We permit the entire building with a site plan exemption, which is like happening in weeks instead of months. If you ask anybody during that time how long a site permit is, they'll be like, it could be 12 months or infinity. Like, we don't know. This is Austin. And we did that in like a couple of weeks. That was my first entry into, oh, wow, if you know which button to press, you could really accelerate in this thing.
Meaning if you know the rules of the game and
you know abstract component of permitting, because you can engineer your way into a hole or out of a hole, like quite literally.
Okay.
And in Austin, like I would have to admit that at the time, if we go to the city and ask the city, what should I do with this hole? It will be a 6-month conversation. They'd be like, well, you have to do an environment study and this and that. I'm sorry, we just put dirt in it. We'll figure it out later.
I think that's a really important point. Like that learning center is almost a miracle. Like, no one would have thought to press that button because it's not the usual button that's pressed. But if you press that, you'll get your permit in 2 weeks.
Got it.
And so we knew the rules, but we also knew the loopholes in the rules.
Gotcha.
Right? And some of these loopholes have since been corrected.
Gotcha.
After we've used them.
Yeah.
Thanks to Fayez.
But at least we've performed some miracles.
Yeah. And the other one that was we did an office building and so on. So there was more story, but I would say 2.0 version is when, like you said, like we know that we can justify to our spouses that this is a real thing, right? It's not a hobby. We can do this. The 2.0 is where we figured out what we're really good at. And I think the engineering, yes, we learned how to do different things. So one of the projects that we cite a lot in terms of what we're good at is the redevelopment of Green Water redevelopment downtown. This is the block that became Prosper Hotel, 2 Google Tower, including the cell-shaped tower, which is iconic now.
Yeah.
And Fayez did a project on Long Center Lawn that like overlooking the downtown. So our first website, which is like looking downtown without that block. So it go full circle when we get to work on some of the utilities during the street extension. And the Google Cell Tower was the sort of quintessential of 2.0 because we were able to like do the permitting really fast by breaking them up. So the garage is pretty typical. So you break it up into a below ground permit and you get that going quickly. The above ground, it needs the time that it needs to become architecturally iconic. So there was 2 architects working at it, try to figure out what is the exact shape. So here's the funny thing. That cell shape was shaped by the fact that there's a setback on the river. So it's anchored, like it have a certain angle, and that angle is what formed that shape of the sail.
Oh.
So the regulatory constraint was the opportunity to shape something iconic.
Oh, interesting.
If you see next door to the sail tower, there's another building that's stair-stepped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's another way to handle that angle. You either stair-step or you make a more creative sail. So different ways to skin that.
So the river determined the shape.
To some degree. The constraint give opportunity canvas
because it had to be a certain distance from it?
Yeah, and also the angle, so you don't create like a canyon effect. this is going back to Austin being humane, right?
Okay.
You don't walk under the building and feel like, oh, this is like concrete jungle. But try to convince a developer who spent, I don't know, $400 million on that deal to like, oh, you don't have to build every square feet of this space. No. I mean, they're going to be like, justify it to me. And so it's kind of convenient. It's like, hey, the city got this requirement, you know, you got to step back a little bit. But solving that challenge, and then the one that we don't always talk about that I'm super proud. One day I'm going to send my nieces there and Richard. And Richard is a school right there in South Lamar. It have all kinds of challenges. We had to build a school within 7 feet of the existing one and keep that under operation while we building it. And that was like 15 months of stuff. And so we have to design them. And we permitted in 2.5 months, which is unheard of. I still think that is the standard, maybe except for Tesla, which is a whole different set of rules. So that's kind of my 2.0 marquee projects that we're really proud of. And then right now we're in the middle of like executing Colony Park, which is the project that took about 10 years. We were a sub-consultant to like one of the engineer firm that I used to work at to do utility because we were really good at that. And then we become the primary engineer, and then we play a key role in like shaping the development by trying to really balance between environmental protection and the community's needs. Like the community needs roadway to connect them, grocery store, things that like matter in your life. Like you don't wake up every day and say, you know, I wish that wetland was nicer. No, you wake up and it's like, man, where am I going to send my kids to school?
Sure.
Where am I going to buy grocery? And so trying to reconcile those without saying that, oh, environmental doesn't matter. It does. It's what makes Austin nice. And so I would say we are in the verge of 3.0, and Colony Park is a key project in that.
What advice do you give to students who are going into the major y'all went into?
I'll let Professor Kazi close out. My thing is, I'm still learning this today, is just be curious.
Okay.
I was going in looking for a challenge. I got some. Like, I think I shared this with you before. It was not an easy place to compete. Some of my classmates was like watching TV and then get 4.0. I'm like, man, how do you do that? And I really found my calling with like trying to do different things and lucky to met Fayez and then do all kinds of interesting stuff. And now building out a 3.0 version of a proper company with structures and processes, and like Mike, our head of the director of engineering, and Marcy, our director of growth, like finally have ways to like do things. And now like some of that learning that I had back in the day kind of coming back is like, oh yeah, that's how you do that. So be curious, I would say, and try different things. I felt very fortunate that the education here was not just like do 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I feel like I still make use of some of that class. An example is we had a professor that taught, I don't know, risk management or construction bush ending. I just saw him the other day. He talked about risk management. And I'm like, when am I going to use this? I'm not in litigation. And then sure enough, you get your own company, you pay insurance policy, you better know how much risk you're taking. And that really go into the way we structure our business, the project we're going after, and stuff like that. So definitely stay curious, try things, and you're going to get your full hand of challenge here.
All right.
When I was teaching, I would tell my students to intern every summer because it's such a foundational degree and you have many opportunities and many options for career pursuits. And so intern every summer and try what you might find you like something or not like something, because you have so many options, you could at least scratch them off the list. But I think this is kind of a new normal with AI and some other things. Like things are going to change, and so it's recognizing that you have many career options and identifying them early on, and then using the network. I mean, all the folks that you met at our table during that event would have been students of mine.
Everybody that came to the Longhorn 100
Jordan,
event, which is y'all were on the fastest growing Longhorn company list. Everybody that came were all students of yours.
Yeah.
Some of them's a TA.
Some of them, a lot of them TAs. And, one of my students is now the real estate officer at UT.
Yeah, Nick.
Nick
Yeah.
Foran. And so, yeah, I mean, the network is powerful.
That's cool.
And the professors, I have to say, like, the professors are, and, you know, I still wonder how they were professors, like 10 or 15 years before I was a student, and now 10 or 15 years after Nat's a student. And so they've had long tenure, long track records, and they're the ones who've written codes about concrete or steel and really shaping how building codes are being used all over the world. So, I mean, they're really some very influential, impactful.
Time is a weird
here.
thing. It is
Yeah.
weird when you came as a student and there was a professor here. He is now retired as of this year, but to me, he was old at the time, and
Yeah.
then he was still here, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
like,
exactly, yeah.
he's been here his whole life. That's
This whole
crazy.
time. This
well,
whole time.
thank you guys for coming in so much.
Yeah, of
I feel
course.
like I learned a lot. Yeah, hook 'em horns. I'm like,
Yeah.
hook 'em horns. Okay, cool.